standing up. The EOC is partially stood up today. It will be fully stood up tomorrow. Today also I'm going to be requesting a pre-landfall declaration from the federal government for protective measures and also direct federal assistance for generators and pumps. And I was able to speak with the acting director of FEMA this morning. We do not anticipate that being a problem, and so we look forward to submitting that to the White House and getting the president's approval on that. I've also been in contact with President of Florida State, John Thrasher. As many of you know, there's a football game scheduled for Saturday night, a big game against Boise State in Jacksonville. Given Jacksonville's location, given the uncertainty of this storm, they've looked for ways to figure out how they can accommodate that. And so I think they're going to go forward with the game, but they're not going to do it in Jacksonville. They're going to do the game in Tallahassee, and I think they're going to have more details for everybody who's interested in that going forward. The message, I think, right now is that all Floridians really need to monitor Hurricane Dorian and make the necessary preparations. This is a track that has a significant amount of uncertainty. I was talking with Ken and some of these people. I mean, you could make a case for places like Miami and the Keys to get impacted. You can make a case for it to be northern Florida, obviously central Florida. So really the key is to have your plan and make those preparations right now. And you have to assume that if you're affected by this storm, that you will lose power. So make accommodations to be able to weather that. Now, I've spoken with the president of Florida Power and Light. They are going to be mobilizing resources from across the southeast because, the state has stressed the importance of getting the power back on when it goes out. And so they're doing it, but there's no way you could have a storm of this significance and not lose power. So just prepare for that. You should also prepare if you're in an area that experiences flooding when you have significant rain events. Well, guess what? If you're impacted by this storm, you are going to see a lot of water. The Ken was showing me the threat of storm surge depending on where it hits. That threat is significant. But even in terms of the interior parts of the state that could be affected by really significant amounts of rain, we have rivers, we have different bodies of water, so be prepared for a lot of water. You should have 7 days of food and medicine and water as part of your plan. I know people are going to the stores now. Some of the water's flying off the shelf. You still have time to prepare, so do it, but have those preparations made in terms of food, water, and medicine. Familiarize yourself with possible shelters in your area. You don't know how the storm is necessarily going to track, and you need to have that information in case you have to avail yourself of those resources. Know which evacuation routes are available to you. Now, that's going to be a decision that the local communities are going to have to make in terms of whether that would be appropriate. Obviously, that's going to depend on the path that the storm ultimately takes, but know those routes in case that happens. And then if local authorities do order an evacuation, heed their call because they're looking at possible impacts in their areas, and if they see really significant storm surge affecting a certain area, that can be life-threatening. And so heed the call and evacuate if you're asked to. Now, if an evacuation is ordered, the Florida Department of Transportation will assist by doing things like waiving tolls, fees, and charges for the use of things like the Florida Turnpike and other public highways. We've had now hurricanes affect the state for a number of years recently. We had a period where we didn't have hurricanes for over a decade. Obviously, we're always bringing new people into the state. And so a lot of people are now experiencing hurricanes. For those who are new with this, let me stress preparation. Let me also remind people that have never been through this, because we have this happen every year. If you do use a generator, make sure you're using that generator properly. Do not let the exhaust go into your home. That it could be fatal. So use that in the proper way. And talk to your neighbors if you've never been through a hurricane here, because we do have a lot of corporate knowledge recently. In terms of some of our agencies, as school closures are announced, that will be posted on the Florida Department of Education website, which is is www.fldoe.org/hurricane-info. As of this morning, no closures had been announced, but obviously we anticipate that as a possibility. Our Agency for Healthcare Administration has activated the emergency status system for healthcare facilities statewide so they can enter their storm preparedness status, including generators and utility company information, emergency contacts, and bed availability. Florida has a 511 traveler information system, so stay informed about what's happening on the roadways. You can go to www.fl511.com. We don't know in terms of any evacuations, but obviously that will affect how these roads are operating. Our Department of Environmental Protection has completed pre-storm beach surveys, and pre-storm prep guidance has been distributed to all hazardous waste, drinking water, and wastewater facilities. And we've had 559 disaster debris management sites that have been pre-authorized in the affected counties. And obviously, as we add counties to that, there's going to be more of those sites that are going to be authorized. www.volunteerflorida.org is being prepared for its disaster mode so that it can coordinate people who are willing to volunteer their time and resources to assist people that are affected by Hurricane Dorian. Visit Florida has a partnership with Expedia for these disaster situations. You can go to www.expedia.com/Florida, and they have activated their emergency accommodations module. Obviously, if you're in an area where there's an evacuation, you want to know how far do you have to go to be safe, and if is there going to be lodging available. And this Expedia app will be able to help you do that. So I just want everybody in Florida, particularly on the East Coast, but really this could have effects. You can make a case that this could have an effect in virtually every part of the state. I urge you to follow local reports. I urge you to watch the Weather Channel, listen to the National Hurricane Center for updates on the path of this storm. You can also go to my Twitter account in the governor's office. It's at Gov Ron DeSantis, at GovRonDesantis. We will be posting updates on our account, and so will Florida State Emergency Response Team, and their Twitter handle is at FLSERT. And they're going to be doing constant updates. You can also go to www.floridadisaster.org. We have a wealth of information on there. But the time to act is now. If you haven't acted, act to make preparations. Do not wait until it's too late. If you've prepared and then don't end up getting affected, no harm, no foul. But if you don't prepare and you are affected, that may be something that is difficult to recover from. And with that, I'm happy to take a few questions. So in terms of some of the contracts, our emergency management director, Jared Moskowitz, has lined up contracts in advance, even before Dorian was on the radar, so that can be done, I think, in a more seamless way. We also are looking to be more aggressive at pre-positioning assets as needed. Now, as you know, when you have a cone of uncertainty that stretches the entire state, pre-positioning assets is a little bit more difficult to know where that most makes sense. But as the, I think, track becomes more clear, we will be willing to do that as well. Anyone else?
I have a question. Comparing to Hurricane Irma, what kinds of things have changed in terms of preparation, maybe FPL, facing wide outages? What kind of things can you assure the state that they are different and will be better now?
Well, one, I think that if you looked at 2016, we had relatively minor storms compared to what we've seen since then. But that was really the first season where we've done this since, I think, 2005. Irma was really test because that affected so many parts of the state. So I think in terms of like the utilities, I think they learned a lot, and I think I've been in contact with FPL, and they really understand the importance of getting this stuff back online. And so we obviously, things like our emergency declaration, that allows them to move more resources quickly across Florida's roads. I would also say, we do have some of the municipal utilities who I think, it has been a little bit more difficult at times. We want to work with them. If they need help from the state, we'll be willing to help. But and I think so will the private utilities be willing to help as well. Because when the storm passes, the quicker you can get the power on, the easier it is to really do the recovery. And I also think that on the back end, we've obviously made a lot of changes. Hopefully, the storm, we don't need to do it as much as we did with Matthew or with Michael, but we did a whole host of things to be able to get the aid out quicker so that those communities would be able to do it. Now, our pre-landfall declaration will allow us to get federal reimbursement for a lot of the preparations that are being done. And so that's a huge weight off the shoulders of a lot of the local communities. And then I did mention with Jared Moskowitz, we are trying to be more proactive with, making sure that the contracting goes seamlessly. So Jared has put a different process in place, but then also if we have a good sense of where the strongest need's going to be, to work on pre-positioning assets. I mean, we have close to 1 million gallons of water, drinking water, and I think we got about 1.2 million meals that are available. And obviously, as circumstances dictate, we may need to do more than that. I would also just like to say, I had initially been planned to come to Miami today before this storm really started to take a more ominous turn to announce the appointment of 4 new judges to the circuit court. So we are going to put that out today via press release. They're great judges. I think all of them have ties. So we're going to do the event at the U, and while that wouldn't make up for the loss against University of Florida, at least you see these folks really making an impact. So I didn't want to come here and not announce them, but under these circumstances, obviously we didn't feel comfortable doing a public event. I can take one more, and then we're going to. Yeah, I mean, so he said, whatever you need, we're good. And I said, because we had been briefed on the whole FEMA controversy, and to me it was more of a political controversy. They have a huge amount of money available. There is not going to be any limitations on Florida getting whatever we need to be able to respond to this. I think there's $25 billion in the disaster relief fund or disaster response fund, and the president assured that we're going to be there for Florida. Some of this money that's being reprogrammed, I think, had been appropriated long ago and was never spent. I don't know the background to that, but I'm confident that it's not going to impact Florida in a negative way. So thank you all very much.